A pleasant good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, Conversations with yours truly, Dion Parson. I'm very excited tonight, being that we have a very special guest from the Caribbean joining us to share with us his musical story. Born in Barbados and ventured to the US, where he studied jazz studies at Berklee College of Music, moved to New York, had a wonderful career, and is doing great things in the Caribbean. I'm very excited to bring on to the show this evening the one and only Mr. Arturo Tappin.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey Arturo, how you doing?
I'm fine. All the best for 2024.
All the best to you. Happy New Year's. Hope
Thank
you had
you.
a wonderful holiday season. I know you've been busy working all those gigs down there in Barbados.
Yeah, cannot complain.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to play your creative music, huh?
Correct. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
good. That's good, man. So, uh, thanks for joining us. We've been talking for a while to get you on the show, and I'm so happy that we've been able to coordinate our schedule because you were one of the first people that I called when we
Right.
started the show. Before we started the show, and
Yeah.
we're busy, man. It's good to be busy, but thank you for
Yes.
working the schedule to be here with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you're down in the Bahamas. I mean, down in Barbados. So tell us about briefly about the music scene down there. What's happening down there?
Well, Barbados is the most easterly of all the Caribbean islands. It's kind of a
Mm,
little dot by itself. We've got about 300,000 people here. Um, and it's a tourism driven market.
okay.
And musicians tend to play a little bit of everything because we have to basically read the room. Sometimes they want jazz, sometimes they want popular music, reggae, whatever. So most of the good musicians here that do a lot of work have the ability to switch up all styles of music. And from the time I was a kid, that's what I was trained to do, to play all types of music. Of course, jazz being my favorite. Um, but apart from music, um, there's no other place I'd rather be, really. I mean, the weather is good. During hurricane season, we've been very fortunate. They go left or right. They always miss us. Um, we've
That's
got the best.
fortunate. That's a
We've
good
got the
thing.
we've got the best prime minister in the world, Mia Amor Motley, the honorable, and it's just fun being here.
Great, great. Well, I could tell from your smile you're having a good
Yeah.
time, man. So that's great,
Thank
man. So tell us a bit about you're born in Barbados, grew up
you. Yeah.
there. So how did you get into music? What was your the factors, the environmental factors? Did you learn it in school? Was it in the
Yeah.
home? Yeah.
Well, at home, my father had a big record collection. He was one of the West Indians that went to England in the 50s. And when he came back, he brought all his records. So I grew up listening to Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Frank Sinatra, John Coltrane. He had a recording of A Love Supreme, Paul Desmond, Stan Getz, also the Beatles, lots of Sparrow, lots of Kitchener. Uh, some of the older ska stuff. I just grew up in a house where I heard all this great music. But I must tell you, when I was a kid, I was like, why is he playing all this foolishness? But it stuck with me. So by
Yeah.
the time I entered secondary school around age 12, they gave me a musical aptitude test. And I had the misfortune of passing it. So they stick you in the choir, stick a violin in my hand. I joined the cadet band and they stick a clarinet in my hand. And every day I was playing music. And that was
Wow.
it. I never
Wow.
stopped.
That's great. So you kind of fell into a really good situation with
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
choir. There's not too many instrumentalists that said that they actually came up singing in the choir as well. So that's really good.
Well, the thing is, you don't know what's going to happen. The music teacher, okay, says, boom, sing this note, la, clap this rhythm. All right, you're in the choir. And I was like, so then every Sunday, twice on a Sunday, rehearsing twice a week. But when I got to do my A levels, I had O levels. Sorry, I had next. I say, listen, man, Daddy, I have so much work to do. I can't get to choir practice. Blah 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 blah. I mean, I enjoyed singing, but it was lead us, Heavenly Father, lead us.
Oh
I didn't want
yeah.
that.
It's
By that
almost
time, I had a taste
only a
of jazz.
chance that the very church, the church
Yes, it
and
was an
stuff.
Anglican Church of England,
Yes.
And
Yeah.
by then, I had a taste of jazz when I was like 15, playing sax in a jazz band. Chuck Mangione stuff, but with all the kids at the time, young teenagers, and that was it for me. I was like, this is what I need to do for a living.
You got bit by the bug.
Yeah.
You got bit by the bug. Now, did you have any private lessons, or was there
I
anyone on the
had,
island
there was a
privately?
guy called James Millington who had studied violin in New York. And it was a very interesting story. He was from Barbados. He went to Miami, I think Florida, to get a job working on a farm. And when he made some money, he bought a violin, went to New York, and took lessons and lessons and lessons. Became very good. Got a diploma in teaching. Came back to Barbados, toured the island, and ended up teaching me. And called my dad one day and said, "Listen, your son has a big head, so he'll be a good musician, but he has to practice every day." And then from the time he told my dad was, "Listen, you got to wake up half an hour earlier than your brother, and you have to practice for half an hour every day or no breakfast."
Okay,
And that made the difference.
that made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you look back at these things and you think you were upset at the time, but then, now you can look back and say, that's those little things, those disciplinary things that he had put in place are what
Yes.
made the difference. The listening to the music he loved, playing violin every day. I did clarinet on the weekend with the police band, one of the directors of the police band, and then I played saxophone for fun. It wasn't. I never had formal lessons until I turned 19, and I got a small scholarship to go to Berkeley, and that's when I started to formalize everything.
Okay, so tell us about that. How did you hear about Berkeley, and how did you ended up there?
Well, Lee Elliott Burke, the founder, he used to holiday every year in Barbados at Sandy Lane.
Okay.
And so he was in a kind of a jazz network here. So the youngsters that were coming up would be invited to these cocktail parties. And then he just gave me some Joviola sight reading books and exercises. And one day, Arthur Priceop was coming to Barbados to do a concert. And his B3 organist was a guy called Lloyd Wilson Jr. Lloyd Wilson Jr. just happened to be the first Bajan to go to Berkeley in the early 70s.
Okay.
And we did a video recording. We sent it to Berkeley, and I did the gig with them. And Lloyd advised me, and boom. I got a Phil Woods alto sax scholarship. I was playing alto at the time, and that's how I got into Berkeley.
Nice. So it pays to know good people.
At the end of the day, it's all networking and connections.
Networking. So you were networking back then, didn't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't know the word, but it was helping.
Yeah, but that's great. That's a great story because the Caribbean is so rich in resources and a lot of folks choose different islands in the Caribbean. Like you talk about Barbados, the same way I speak highly of Barbados, same way I speak highly of the Virgin Islands. And I know a lot of folks from Europe and that are part of the European Jazz Festival community that comes through here and vacation and stuff. I've been introduced to a number of them. And while on tour, being over there, I've seen them, and so it's really interesting that being from the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, within our island network, there's a lot of synergies and there's a lot of reasons why we attract people that come here, and it pays off. Like you say, your story is a great story. You ended up Berklee College of Music, one of the greatest institutions for musicians in the jazz idiom, and didn't even know that what was going to be ahead of you. And there's a lot of people from the Caribbean that have similar stories. So, man, and so you got to Berkeley, and what's great about me talking to you is that I was that kid coming to New York, and I kept hearing Arturo Tappin, and it's like, oh, so like I've known of you as this great, this great
Mm,
figure, great
mm,
musician, great,
mm,
master from the Caribbean. That when I got to New York in 1990, and everybody was talking about you, I was like, man, I got to meet this guy because you helped pave the way for a lot of us, the Ron Blakes
thank you.
and Rogers, and
Right, yeah.
so it's really great to follow in your footsteps because again, we in the Caribbean, our resources are limited, but
Yes.
of us that have traveled and have been successful at it, we hear
Mm.
about each other through our journey, and we pay homage to each other. But you did a great job paving the way, man. So
Well, you know what? In Barbados, I used to hear about Happy Williams
yeah, the bass player, yes, sir.
and Monty Alexander, right?
Yes.
And then, um, I actually met another good left-hand swing drummer called Al Harewood. Al
Alhero, yes.
Harewood
Yep.
is actually Bajan, and he had
Yes.
a house here, so he'd come down and he'd organize gigs and bring some guys from New York, so I'd get to play with him. And
Mhm.
he really only did these concerts to help local guys experience what it was like to play swing with cats
Right.
that were living in New York. And then, believe it or not, when I was 15, 16 years old, they opened a jazz club here. And I was accustomed jamming, and they brought in a drummer from New York. And I walked in. He actually lives in Long Island, and you laugh when you find out who it is. And I walked in. I saw some of the guys I knew, but I didn't know who he was. He's playing drums. I jumped on stage. I'm 16. I'm just trying to figure out how to play. And then I walked off the stage, and he got up and said, "Oh, so that's how you do it in Barbados." And he was kind of implying that I was kind of rude to just jump up on the stage and play. But I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on. And my dad, who's 6 foot, jumped up, like ready to fight with this guy who's 5 foot a little bit. Anyway, that drummer and I became good friends. Every time he was in Barbados, we would hang out. Guess who it was? Roy Haynes,
Right
another.
It's 5 foot and Long Island because he
Yeah.
lives in Long Island. Roy Hayes, yep.
Yeah.
But
So
he has
from a
family from here,
teenager, I
right?
was, huh?
Doesn't he have family from Barbados also?
Yes, yes. His parents moved to Boston from Barbados.
Okay,
But
yes.
so I've always had this opportunity to work with super good guys, even when I wasn't good, or even when I didn't know what I was doing. They were just, you know, inspiring me to try harder.
Yeah, I think it's a Caribbean thing because that mantra, each one teach one. Everyone that
Yes.
I met from the Caribbean
Mm.
growing up musically, especially when I got to New York, they just took a liking and was like, hey man, this is what you have to do. You talk about Happy
Yeah.
Williams. I work
Yeah.
with Happy in so many situations. And Happy have been so encouraging. I worked
Yes.
with him for many, many years.
Uh,
Um, another great gentleman that he's not from Barbados, but he's from the Virgin Islands that
yeah.
it took me a minute to meet when I got to New York. Bass player Paul West.
Correct.
And
Wow.
Paul played with Paul played with Dizzy, with everyone.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
and a friend of mine by the name of Bill Saxton found out I was from St. Thomas, and I was playing with Bill in Harlem. And Bill said to me one day, he said, man, you have to meet Paul West. And we went down to the Henry Street settlement down in Alphabet City, and he introduced me to
Uh,
Paul. And ever since, I call him Uncle Paul. Ever since then, every time we would play in New York, he would always come out. But there's something about being from the Caribbean where we have this musical fraternity where we look out for each other and we make sure that everybody's doing the right thing.
yes,
That's
but
one thing.
sometimes it's also surprising because there are very few people that in whatever community you're in. The jazz community is always small. So then by the time you get to a smaller island, that community shrinks. There's like on the island, there's one trumpeter, one bass player, one of everything that's good. So
Right.
for anybody to learn, they're a satellite to everything. So when someone from overseas comes, you kind of make that link immediately. And then of course, when you go to America, now you're a minority there that you have to try to spread your wings where there's so much competition. that you weren't necessarily accustomed to where you were from. And it could either make you work harder or you disappear. Going to Berkeley at age 19, when I got there, there were guys there who already sound like Mike Brecker and John Coltrane. I was like, why are you at Berkeley? But their parents were musicians. Their parents they were good from the time they were 16. They had it all worked out. Berkeley was because they had to go to college and network.
Right.
And so my first year at Berkeley, I was doing 6 hours a day to catch up because I didn't have access to the information until then.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, by my second year, I hooked up with Bill Pierce, and it was like just
That's
really
great, man. Bill Parson has always been a great mentor to a lot of musicians of the Caribbean. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You know, coming from the Caribbean, you can either jump in or you could just kind of reel back and be like, hey, you know, this isn't for me. But the great ones, I mean, you jump in there and there's so much at the other end of it because, you know, similar thing. When I took my first drum lesson in college, 18 years old.
Wow.
Showed up, I'm like, I'm a drummer, and they was like, no, you're not the way you sound. And Copeland was the gentleman that said, hey man, if you're serious, I'll work with you. And by again, I was doing like 14 hours. I was actually sleeping in my practice room. I moved into my practice room, and that was like for me, the only choice I had. It was either that or not do it. So I understand what you're saying. Because in the Virgin Islands, I actually grew up playing trombone. I was a trombonist. And I switched to in high school. And my band teacher at the time just said, hey, he gave me a sheet of paper and it was a 26 standard rudiments. He was like, that's all I have for you. and that's all I knew. I knew 26 standard rudiments inside and out, or anything else. So again, the resources we have are limited, but you know, we find our way because you know, if it's innate, if it's within us, it has to come out. It has to come out, and you have to do it. But so you got to Berkeley, you met Bill Pierce, you know, you worked really hard, diligently. Got to New York, and once you got to New York, you started playing with everybody.
Well, there was a pause in between there, right?
Okay.
Apart from Berkeley, what I have to say, one of the greatest period of learning was actually going to Wally's every night and jamming.
Right.
Getting your butt kicked. Guys saying, hey, that's not the first chord in the bridge, it's this, blah, blah. Wally's was really, so I would go to Wally's every night as well. But it meant I was out late every night. And in Boston at that time, it's not a good idea to be walking around after 2 o'clock in the morning because everything's shut down. So as I went on, I had some experiences with the police where they stopped me. Every time I had my Barbados passport, and that kind of saved me, I got accused of stealing a green leather jacket. A guy fitted your description, stole this jacket, but I had the bill of sale and my passport. Ooh. One time I came out of Wally's, they put me on the car and frisked me. And that was when I decided, you know what? I'm going back to Barbados.
Okay.
So I went back to Barbados and I was gigging, you know, jazz, pop, whatever. And I started doing the Caribbean festivals, the jazz festivals, whatever. And then I decided to do, with the help of an angel investor, to do a video and an album, which was my first album called Strictly Roots. And I recorded that in London because I was on tour at the time. And it was basically instrumental reggae. Some people call it reggae jazz. And I was able to get distribution in Jamaica through Tough Gown after a meeting with Cedella Marley, Bob's daughter. She liked the album. And then she would fly me in to do Bob Marley's birthday bash in the grill, Kingston. I met Rita, and then she gave me some gigs as well. So once I got into Jamaica now, people started seeing me, and Japanese guy got me a licensing deal in Japan. And when all that started to happen, then a lady walked in on a gig saw me playing. I recognized her, stopped the band, played her tune. She walked over after and said, "What are you doing in Barbados?" I said, "Gigging." He said, "Now we got to get you to New York." And that was Roberta Flack.
Wow.
That's how I got to New York.
That's how you got to New York. Okay. Great. And
Yes.
so she heard you in Barbados.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's great. So all that stuff you went through in Boston actually paid off. It put you on a whole nother
Yes.
path. Yeah. So you had a different path, an unconventional path, but you came back
Yes.
home.
I went around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hey, in the States is it's a tricky thing, you know. It's really a tricky thing and you have to find your way. But luckily for you, you found your way. Went on the road with Roberta, because I remember that's around the time when I got up there and you were doing a lot of stuff with Roberta. And
Yeah.
I met a good friend, Buddy Wilson, Butson Corp.
Yeah.
And Buddy became very influential
Yeah.
to me as well,
Yeah.
encouraging me and mentoring me and recommending me for a number of things. Free to
Yeah.
Paint, Color Purple.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Buddy just you know how Buddy is.
But how I ended up meeting Buddy, it was on a Roberta Flack tour, because sometimes she switches drummers around. And we're on the road, and I walked in, I see Buddy, and he's like, Arturo. And I was like, how does he know me? Well, his best friend was living in Barbados, who he went to school with. So he had some friends, actually he had a couple of friends here who would do the jazz circuit here. So they told him. So by the time I got into Roberta Flack, he was aware, and we hit it off, and we went on tour. And anytime anybody called him, in that especially in that R&B circuit, we need a sax player. I got hooked up. You know, Anita Baker, Freddie Jackson, and then I met Ivan Hampton, who was Luther Vandross's drummer, and then he hooked me up with Luther Vandross, and it was like, you know, once you know one person, you kind of
You find your way. Find your way.
Yeah.
Great, man. Well, congratulations on all of those accomplishments.
Yeah.
I know our audiences, they dying. They're like, let's hear this guy play. Let's hear this guy play. we have some music. You shared some music with us, and I would like to take this time out to play for our audience your first composition from your first project as a leader, the one that you did in England. It's a song entitled "Breaking," and
it's breaking up 1994.
1994. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's check it out.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
was the drummer on that? Was that Desi?
Yes, that's Desi Jones on drums. Yeah, you know the fella. Bad
I
drummer.
haven't seen him in years. Last time I saw him was again around 1994 in Jamaica.
Yeah, yeah,
I was down Monty. Yeah, Desi had all the gigs, man. He was
yeah.
very good drummer, man.
Very reliable, professional, fun guy.
Yes, yes. Good people,
And you
good
know that
people.
now that I look back, the guitarist, he moved to Florida. He's playing bass now with a lot of smooth jazz artists, and
Okay,
the bass player is that Toots and the Maytals. That's his son playing bass.
okay.
Um, yeah, Lacadco Dancers. That's an award-winning Jamaican dance organization in Jamaica, and Stephanie Black, the lady who directed the video. She's an award-winning director. That was actually done on film, so it was an
Thank you.
enjoyable experience.
Yes, I enjoyed that. Yes, I mean, but again, that was like one of the first time you heard instrumental jazz. I mean, you heard smooth jazz, which is kind of like instrumental pop music, but you weren't
Yes.
hearing that on the reggae scene. So you
No.
were one of the first to kind of bring that to the scene.
Yeah, I was trying to do something that was a little different. I heard of I heard Monty doing some calypso jazz stuff. There was a guy. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was the first, because ska was jazz musicians playing Jamaican, the earlier version of
Right.
Jamaica. So I'm basically taking on a tradition of the Jamaican musicians that did that. The only difference I might have, because of I would have grown up listening to Grover or smooth jazz, and I spent my life trying to be a bit of Charlie Parker, that might enter into the music, and there are longer improvisations as opposed to long melodies and short solos.
Yeah.
I did it the opposite way. Very short melodies and long solos on that entire album, because it was the first album. And it was basically, all right, there's some melodies here and some nice grooves. Can he really play? That was the whole mindset behind putting the album out. And because it's a reggae beat, it might have more mass appeal, even though I'm playing a lot of jazz on top of it. It was to hold the audience with that hypnotic reggae groove.
Right. More of a step was to
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
and so if I got on festivals, I could maintain their interest even though I'm taking a trip.
Right, and it's danceable.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's great. It caught my attention early, and I was like, I like it. A nice dance of people. It's fun. It's loving, and again, you play with it. But you said the difference is like with scatolites and ska music is long melodies with short improvised solos, and it's really that ska groove, because it's the thing with them is that they never really played one drop or anything else. They really focused on that particular groove. But you also mentioned Monty, because he does a lot of Monty will take any song and make it a reggae.
Correct.
Any song, and he'll take the Battle Hymn of Republic and be swinging on it, and the next thing you know, you drop into one drop, and it's swinging just as hard. So he had that gift.
And talking about Monty, I was shocked to get a phone call, and he asked me to play on his album. He was recording in New York with and the producer was Todd Barkin.
Okay.
So we went down we were doing it in Jamaica, and we were staying at the Pegasus. He said, "Yeah, come by my room for a rehearsal." So I walked in there with my saxophone, and he had his what do you call that?
Melodica, yes.
Yeah. So he started soloing. You know that tune? I said, "I think so." You know that tune? That was the end of the rehearsal. All right, see you tomorrow.
Oh man, we have similar. Monty used to call me, and I lived in Harlem on 157th Street, and he would be down at Holiday Inn on 58. Bring your drums down. Let's have a rehearsal. Similar thing. He pulled out the melodic. I'll set up the drums in the hotel room, and we'll go out there for about 2 or 3 hours, and he was just playing the melodica, and we were working on these grooves. And see you at the gig.
It was very open.
Very open, but it was a lot of information because he knew what he wanted. He was very specific.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yes.
He wanted, yeah. Very,
Yeah.
very specific, man. But he could swing on anything, and it's really
Yeah.
great. Anybody that played with him kind of have a similar story of just
Correct.
he had this embodiment of the swing and the blues, man. So,
Yes.
but you did something really nice with the blues, minor blues that I really think that we should share, because as I was going through your songs, I heard this reggae blues song, and I said, "Man, this is different." Never. I mean, you heard the changes, but not like that. It sounded like a take off a train and something else. Like we got to play this for our audience. So
well, you're spot on, because when I was at Berkeley, I can tell you what I was doing at Berkeley. I was trying to study Charlie Parker. I was trying to study Dave Sanborn. I was trying to do Grover Washington. I was trying to do Cannonball. I was trying to do Dexter. I was trying to do Coltrane. It was like, it was right. But whatever happened at the end of all of that, over the years, then I found myself somewhere in between there,
Because trying to do all of that, man, you're gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt.
Right.
But it all reflected in this song, and I think you did a good job featuring and presenting yourself on Blue Reggae. So let's hear Blue Reggae. That's being all the way in there. So all those names.
I have to mention something. When I went to do that album, I remember I told you I had an investor. It was a guy called John Haggins, and he loved reggae and discovered jazz late in his life, you know, and he wanted to get involved in producing music, and so he encouraged me to approach it like a jazz record, in the sense like we do state melody and solo. At that time, it seemed a bit crazy to everybody. And I do remember Courtney Pine having a smooth reggae album out around the same period, but his was more of a melody oriented thing. And of course, he's a very intense soloist. But I think, to be specific, this is probably the first one of his type where we're doing a steppers, 12-bar melody, not even a minute, and then solo till the end of the record. That was definitely different, you know. And it was all reggae musicians. I'm the only jazz musician on it.
Yeah. Well, it felt great. They held it down. It grooved. But at one point, I was like, "Does anybody else solo on this?" And you would take it all. Like I said, you were all the way in there. All those names you mentioned, Bird, James, you played it all.
Yeah, there were no other soloists in the band. It was basically a reggae band, and I was like, "Hey, we met in the studio." You know, I knew the drummer, a guy called Mikey Halsmeyer from Barbados. But other than that, we met for the first time, and they, "What are we gonna play?" I said, "These are the chords. Let's go."
Well, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. As I was listening, we had picked a set of songs to play, and then I went back and I played this again, and I said, we have to play this one.
Right. Even the melodies we made up on the spot.
That's nice. I enjoy that. That's really.
Yeah.
So you did the whole album in one day.
We did 5 songs the first day, and about 5 the second day, and then we mixed on the third day.
Okay. Open it up. Well, it came out really great, and I would encourage everyone to go and check out. What's the name of the album?
Strictly Roots, Arturo Tappin.
Strictly Roots, Arturo Tappin. I would encourage our audience to check it out because it's some really good stuff, and I enjoyed listening, particularly the reggae, the blue reggae. I like that, but it's there's some dub stuff on there and everything.
Correct.
And you did a really good job representing it. And it's again, we grew up with so much music, so much a variety of music. I mean, of course, we learned the classical stuff growing up, but when it comes to our culture, it's so diverse. You have reggae, mental, quail bay, soca, calypso. It's a lot of different varieties of stuff. We haven't even talked about a whole lot of idioms yet. And you're talking about being in Barbados and having versatile to play these gigs. We're exposed to so much.
Yes, correct.
We're exposed to. And to hear this type of improvisation on top of reggae, I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm sitting up there smiling.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So as you mentioned, you were working with Roberta Flack for a while, and you lived in New York also. And while you were in New York, you mentioned that you focused more on the smooth jazz genre versus European genre. And we have a report in here that you're playing flute on. It's entitled "It Always Gets Better."
Yeah, it's on flute.
Something correct. Yes. So let's play this recording for our audience. Gets better, Arturo Tappin, featuring his flute playing. I like that.
Yeah, I do.
So, what year was that?
That would have been, that would have been early 2000s, 2005, maybe 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do that many gigs on flute as well?
Well, I take a flute to work with me every night, and I might play a song or two. But to be honest, flute was something you had to do at Berkeley, and so I would play it, but it's not my main act. You know, I play a couple of tunes, but I do like Rassan Roland Kirk, and that's who I kind of patterned myself off as a flute player. I try to do that style of flute playing.
Yeah, I heard some vocals in your playing while you was doing the thing. Yeah,
correct. And I got that from Rassan Roland Kirk. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And it seems like the flute is paired with tenor sax, because I have a number of friends that play tenor sax and they all double on flute.
That's the tradition from the big band. Once in a big band, sax, clarinet, flute. if you want the gig in the big band, you got to play those doubles, you know. Yeah.
Great. And so you've had a nice run with the smooth jazz music as well, and you're back in Barbados, and as you mentioned, you do a number of different gigs, different styles during your gigs. What's your favorite? You have a favorite style, and everybody have a favorite style they like to play.
Man, listen, some nights we play Haitian music, compa, and the band will lock into the groove, and I will play Cuff It by Beyonce. I play Rupee. I play Allison. We play that one beat, and that's what we locked into. And we just play pop music, old music, we just play that beat. Another night we drop a reggae and we play whatever. I like grooves and I like nice melodies, right? So whether it's a tune from 1930, 40s, 50s, it's really about the song for me. And there's so many songs I love. It's a mood thing, you know what I mean? It's very hard for me to say. As a musician, I make an effort to practice Donnelly, Cherokee, Giant Steps, so I don't lose what I've gained. As a person who tries to mentor young people coming up, I make sure they learn 12-bar blues, rhythm changes. Those are the key things. When it comes to calypso, I teach everybody Old Lady Walk a Mile and a Half by Kitchener to, that type of feeling. I can't say I have a favorite tune or a favorite song, or I like playing everything. It's a mood thing, you know.
Yeah. It definitely represents your African
Correct.
We hear everything, we party to everything, we're influenced by everything, and some of us, we gravitate towards other things, and like at a different parts of your life, you've taken the time to study everything, and it shows. You've made quite an impression and have a nice following of fans that do support you, which is great. So I applaud you for what you brought to the table. And I really want to thank you again for being here, because I've learned so much. I mean, there was some gaps there that I didn't know, and you filled them, and I a lot to learn, a lot more to learn.
The thing about being a resident in the Caribbean and trying to operate as a musician, the best gigs are the jazz festivals. But unfortunately, these big jazz festivals rarely have jazz. And so, but you can play, but the fest like St. Lucia might have jazz. Tobago had a jazz festival the longest time. Never had jazz. But the festivals that do well have had to marry whatever is popular, an R&B artist or a pop artist, and then they would have smaller venues with Herbie Hancock or whatever, the top jazz artists would do the maybe 1,000-seater venue, but some of these venues are 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, so it's harder to get an audience of 5,000, 6,000 people that are into jazz. So St. Lucia in particular had it mastered, where they would do the smaller venues and bring in lots of straight ahead artists. Then the bigger venues, they would do, whoever that's popular, Lionel Richie or whatever, and that would help bring out the numbers. And they actually help pay for a lot of the events, And I figured out, for me, the best way to getting on that was to get on the bigger stage. So that's the reason why I used to try to get some jazz in over the reggae or the compa or the soca or whatever, and that way you can get to a wider audience of 5,000, 6,000 people and then get on other festivals,
Yeah. Hey, you have a plan, so stick to it. 2024.
Thank you.
continue with your plan.
Yeah.
Continue with your plan, man. It's just, I think, hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it, and it's been
Yeah.
working. So,
Thank you, man.
yes, and
Appreciate it.
yeah, man, definitely. We have one more song. We're not done yet. I want us to play this song before we leave, because I think it would be a good way to write down Undercover.
Yes.
Remember Undercover? What year was that?
I think that might have been from the first album, 1994, 94. Yeah, that was from the first album. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say
All right.
Undercover and take us out. cover. Undercover by Arturo Tappin.
You know, when I was thinking about it, I'm always surprised the number of young musicians that I meet coming up in Barbados that this was their first album and their first introduction to jazz. And it's kind of the idea um, there was something they can hold on to in terms of the reggae. And then it helped bring them over to go and listen to
Exactly.
Dexter Gordon or Sonny Rollins or whatever as a result of discovering this, you know, which is kind of what happened to me. The first album I bought was Wine Light by Grover Washington. Then I went and got his Kudu record stuff, and then I found out he listened to Hank Crawford, and then Fathead Newman with Ray Charles, and I went back, and then I started seriously checking Charlie Parker and Sonny Rollins, etc. And sometimes that's how we discover the music, you know.
Definitely. Remember in the 80s, Herbie Hancock did like some pop stuff. He had a song Rocket.
Yes.
He did. You know, and my friends had DJ groups and they played that. And for me, that's how I discovered Herbie Hancock. And I remember
Yeah.
I was playing in the college band at the time, and I went to the rehearsal, and we were talking, and Herbie Hancock's name came up, and I said to the band director, I said, "Yeah, he have a new song out called Rocket," and he said, "No, he doesn't." And this cat, Dr. McClellan, he ended up going teaching at Berkeley. He started the music program in the Virgin Islands. Make a long story short, he found out I was telling the truth, and then he introduced me to Eye of the Hurricane, and then the quintet with Wells, and that's how I learned a lot of that was through this pop record that Herbie put out. But you had groups like Spiral Gyra and Yellow Jacket, and those groups, Hiroshima and Chuck Man. And a lot of that was being played in the islands at the time.
Correct.
And that journey, then I was able to hear a lot of the traditional stuff. So you're absolutely right. You know, if the young listeners can hold on to a reggae beat and hear the improvisation on top, it'll spark the interest to go check it out further.
And in that actual solo, I actually quoted some Herbie Hancock diminish lick that I heard him play years ago that I didn't know what it was, but I liked the sound of it, and I remember trying to figure it out. So now it's part of me. I just play it. I don't even think about it, but I remember it came from Herbie Hancock.
Nice. So what's next for Arturo? What do you have going on? What can you share with our listeners?
Well, I'm in Barbados. I work with a company called 4am that has 3 of the top restaurants here. So I kind of do the music programming, and they have live music every night. Every Monday night, we do feature shows. Tina Turner, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Lionel Richie. That's kind of a show, full band, background vocalist, guitar, you know, full show. Every Friday, we do a taste of soca where we bring in our major soca artists and carnival dancers at QP Bistro. It's a beautiful restaurant on the sea, about 4 or 5 levels. Every table is a sea view, and it's a great office to be in almost every night. And that's what I'm doing now.
Nice. Sounds like you're staying busy and you're doing what you love. You're presenting all the music that you love, that you like playing. You're presenting it on a very high level to the visitors and the locals in Barbados. So congratulations, and continue. I wish you continued success. And again, thank you very much for joining us at Sounds of the Diaspora and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, the pleasure's ours, man. The pleasure's ours, and we look forward to continue this conversation because I know there's a lot of stuff you left out.
All right.
Arturo Tappin, thank you very much. We enjoyed having you. So that concludes our show for tonight. Join us next week as we have wonderful special guests on for you, and we look forward to you joining us. Same time, same place, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Dion Parson. Thank you. Take care.